I opened a hospital bill while my daughter ate crackers and saw my husband's name beside another woman's pregnancy. He said, "It's complicated." Then he died, she died, and his family handed me their babies. So I signed papers they never expected. Some mornings I still wake up and forget for a few seconds. I forget the envelope. I forget the way my daughter looked at me when my hands started shaking. Then it comes back all at once, and I have to lie still until I can breathe again. The bill came on a Tuesday. That's the detail I remember. Not the date. Not what I made for dinner. Just that it was a Tuesday, and Lily had crumbs on her sweater because she was eating crackers straight from the sleeve at the kitchen table. I had just brought her home from school. She was talking about a class project with construction paper and glue sticks, and I was sorting through the mail with one ear on her and the other on my own tired thoughts. Most of it was junk. Coupons. A reminder from the dentist. One hospital envelope addressed to Michael. Normally, I would have left it on the counter for him, but we had always opened household bills. It was never private. Our marriage looked ordinary that way. Shared calendar. Shared groceries. Shared bank account. Shared jokes about how fast kids outgrow shoes. So I opened it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. There was a woman's name on it. Chloe. I didn't know a Chloe. The bill mentioned prenatal appointments, lab work, an ultrasound balance, and Michael's name was listed as the responsible party. I stood there with my coat still on, reading the same lines over and over like the words might rearrange themselves if I stared hard enough. Lily said, "Mom? Did you hear me?" I folded the bill so fast the paper bent crooked. "Sorry, baby," I said. "Tell me again." She kept talking, but her voice sounded far away. My ears were buzzing. My hands felt cold. I kept looking at the back door, waiting for Michael to walk in so I could ask him a question that had no good answer. He came home around 7. He smiled when he opened the door. That hurt more than if he had looked guilty. He carried takeout because he said he knew I had a long day. He kissed Lily on the head, asked about school, and set the food down like we were still a normal family. I waited until Lily was upstairs getting ready for bed. Then I put the hospital bill on the kitchen table. Michael looked at it, then looked at me. "Who is Chloe?" He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. "Michael. Who is she?" He sat down slowly, like his legs had given out. He rubbed both hands over his face, and I remember thinking, "Don't you dare act tired. Don't act like you're the one carrying something heavy." He said, "I was going to tell you." I laughed once. It came out sharp and ugly. "When?" I asked. "At the baby shower?" His eyes turned red, but I didn't care. He told me Chloe was someone he met near work. At first, he called her a friend. Then he admitted they had been sleeping together. Then he said she was pregnant. How pregnant? He looked down. I already knew it was bad. 5 months. 5 months. For 5 months, my husband had known another woman was carrying his child while he came home to me and asked what we were having for dinner. For 5 months, he watched me pack Lily's lunch, wash his shirts, remind him about school events, and sit beside him on the couch like I wasn't living inside a lie. Then he said the part that made the room tilt. "It's twins." I gripped the back of the chair. He started talking faster. He said it wasn't supposed to happen. He said Chloe was scared. He said he felt responsible. He said every time he tried to tell me, he panicked. I asked him if he loved her. He paused. That pause hurt more than the confession. Then he said, "It's complicated." I had heard people say that in movies. I always thought it sounded weak. In real life, it felt worse. Not dramatic. Not romantic. Just pathetic. "No," I said. "Taxes are complicated. Insurance is complicated. This is you betraying me." He cried then. He told me he loved me. He told me he loved Lily. He said he made a mistake and didn't know how to fix it. That was when another thought hit me. The canceled dance classes. The cheaper groceries. The way he kept saying bills were getting tight. The guilt I felt for buying Lily a new winter coat because Michael kept talking about budgets. I asked, "Did you use our money?" He blinked like he hadn't expected that question. "Not like that," he said. "There is no good version of yes." He admitted he had helped with appointments. A few bills. Groceries. Things Chloe needed. He kept saying it was for the babies, like that was supposed to make me softer. It didn't. Because while he was paying for another woman's pregnancy, I was at home wondering why my own husband barely touched me anymore. Lily came downstairs during the worst part. She stood in the hallway in her pajamas, holding her stuffed rabbit. Her eyes were wide and scared. "Why are you crying?" Before I could answer, Michael turned and said, "Mom's just upset." Mom's just upset. Not, I hurt your mother. Not, I did something wrong. Just a neat little lie to make my pain sound inconvenient. I told Lily to go back upstairs and I would come tuck her in. She looked between us, confused, then went up slowly. When her door closed, I looked at Michael. You need to leave tonight. Sarah, please. No. You do not get to sleep under this roof tonight. He tried to argue that Lily would be confused. I told him Lily was already confused because her father had turned our home into a stage and expected me to keep acting. He packed a bag in the guest room while I stood in the hallway. I didn't trust myself alone, and suddenly, I didn't trust him either. When he reached the stairs, he looked up toward Lily's room. Can I say goodbye? Not tonight. He looked broken. I wish that gave me satisfaction. It didn't. It just felt like someone had smashed glass on the floor and handed me the broom. After he left, I went upstairs to Lily. She was pretending to sleep. I sat on the edge of her bed and rubbed her back until her breathing changed. Then I went to the laundry room, shut the door, and cried into a towel so she wouldn't hear me. The next 2 weeks were a blur of phone calls, screenshots, bank statements, and legal appointments. My lawyer, Elizabeth, told me to gather everything. The hospital bill, credit card records, texts, proof of where the money went. I hated it. It felt like digging through my own trash looking for pieces of my marriage. Michael kept texting. At first, it was apologies. He wanted to explain. He wanted counseling. He didn't want to lose his family. When I didn't soften, the messages changed. He said I was being cold. He said I was making it harder for Lily. He said the babies were innocent. That became everyone's favorite sentence. The babies are innocent. I knew that. I never said they weren't. But people kept saying it like innocence was a debt I owed. His mother, Susan, called 3 days after he left. He told us everything, she said. Did he? She went quiet. Did he tell you he used household money for her appointments while telling me we needed to cut back on Lily's dance classes? Susan cried softly. He made terrible choices. Choices. That word made it sound like he ordered the wrong thing from a menu. His father, Paul, didn't yell. He just sighed and said Michael had always avoided conflict. He said sometimes men make stupid decisions when they feel trapped. Trapped by what? I asked. His wife? His child? The life he chose? Paul said that wasn't what he meant. But it was. Michael's sister, Ashley, sent me a long message about not making decisions while emotions were high. She said divorce was permanent. She said family was complicated. She said there were children involved now. I typed back, yes. Mine. Then I blocked her for 2 days. I filed for divorce before the month was over. Michael cried when he was served. He called me from his car, voice shaking, saying he thought we were still talking. We are, I said. Through lawyers. That was the first time he got angry. So that's it, he said. 11 years and you're just done? You were done when you made a second family without telling me. I didn't make a family with her. I almost laughed. Then what do you call twins? After that, he moved into a small apartment across town. Close enough to see Lily, but also close enough to Chloe that I understood where his priorities were, even when he denied it. Lily saw him every other weekend at first. She hated it. Not because he was bad to her. He wasn't. That was the hard part. Michael was a good father when he was with her. He helped with homework. He made pancakes. He knew which stuffed animal she needed when she was sick. But kids feel changes adults try to hide. One Sunday, after he dropped her off, Lily stood in the doorway with her backpack still on and asked, "Is Daddy having a new family?" I knelt in front of her. "Daddy made some grown-up choices that hurt our family," I said. "But you're still his daughter. Nothing changes that." She asked if the babies were the reason he moved out. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect her from every ugly detail. But lies had already ruined enough. "The babies are part of what happened," I said. "But none of it is your fault." She cried into my shoulder, small broken sobs that made me hate Michael in a way I had never hated anyone. I talked to Carol, her teacher, and arranged counseling through the school. I didn't want Lily carrying adult pain with child-sized tools. Michael hated that I involved the school. He said I was making him look bad. "You did that by yourself," I told him. For a while, everything was ugly but predictable. Lawyers. Custody schedules. Michael asking to talk. Me refusing. His family sending messages I mostly ignored. Chloe existed at the edge of my life like a shadow I could not escape. I saw her once from my car outside Michael's apartment. She was visibly pregnant, standing beside him while he carried grocery bags. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm. I gripped the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. Not because I wanted him back. That part had died. But seeing them together made everything real in a new way. He had not just made one mistake in some abstract dark room. He had a routine with her. A grocery list. Appointments. Inside jokes. A version of himself that smiled while I was home helping Lily glue a cardboard solar system for school. That night, I checked old bank statements until midnight. I found small charges at places we didn't shop. Gas stations near her side of town. A furniture store. A payment to the hospital. Nothing huge on its own, but together they told the story he hadn't. When I showed Elizabeth, she said we could use some of it in the divorce negotiations. She was calm and careful. I appreciated that because I was neither. The first settlement meeting was humiliating. Michael sat across from me wearing the blue sweater I bought him the year before. That detail made me furious for no good reason. He looked tired. Thinner. Like he wanted me to pity him. I didn't. He asked if we could speak alone. Elizabeth said no. I loved her for that. His lawyer talked about assets and custody. Michael kept looking at me like if he stared long enough, I would remember who he used to be. At one point, he said, I know you hate me, but I'm trying to do right by everyone. You don't get to make me part of your everyone. He flinched. Maybe that should have hurt me. It didn't. The divorce was not final when Michael died. It was raining that night. He had been driving back from somewhere. I don't know if it was work, Chloe's place, the store, or some errand I will never hear about. A truck hydroplaned. There was a pileup. By the time the police called, he was gone. I found out while Lily was asleep. My phone rang at 11:42. The officer's voice was gentle in that careful way people use when they know they are about to ruin your life and cannot stop it. I sat on the hallway floor because my knees stopped working. I had imagined so many future conversations with Michael. Courtroom conversations. Angry parking lot conversations. Years later conversations where he apologized properly and I was healed enough not to care. Death erased all of them. It left me with the man I hated, the man I had loved, and no place to put either version. I didn't wake Lily until morning. I sat beside her bed for almost an hour before I touched her shoulder. When she opened her eyes, she smiled, still sleepy, and asked if it was school. I broke before I got the words out. I told her there had been an accident. I told her Daddy died. I held her while she screamed into my chest, and I felt something inside me split in a way that had nothing to do with betrayal. Because anger does not protect you from grief. I was furious at him. I was disgusted by what he had done. But he was still the man who held my hand when Lily was born. He was still the person who knew how I liked my coffee. He was still in 1,000 tiny corners of my life, and suddenly all those corners were haunted. His funeral was awful. Chloe was there. She was heavily pregnant, pale, and crying with one hand resting on her stomach. I had spent months turning her into a villain in my head, but in that church, she looked young and scared and completely alone. I hated her. I pitied her. Both were true. Susan hugged Chloe longer than she hugged me. I noticed. I wish I hadn't. Paul could barely look at anyone. Ashley moved between relatives like she was managing a crisis instead of grieving her brother. After the service, Chloe approached me near the side doors. I'm sorry, she said. Her voice was small. I wanted to say something cruel. I wanted to ask if she was sorry before or after she let my husband pay her bills. I wanted to ask if she thought about my daughter when she texted him at night. But she was standing there pregnant with his twins, and he was dead 10 feet away in a closed casket. So I said, I can't do this with you. She nodded like she expected that. Maybe she deserved it. Maybe she didn't. I still don't know. After the funeral, people expected me to soften. They thought death made everything sacred. Like because Michael was gone, I had to polish his memory for everyone else. But he didn't die as only my husband. He died as the man who betrayed me, the father of my child, the father of 2 unborn babies, and the person who left a mess no one knew how to clean up. The twins were born 3 months later. A boy and a girl. Adam and Emma. I learned their names from Susan, who sent a group text with a photo attached. 2 tiny babies wrapped in hospital blankets. I stared at the picture, waiting for some feeling to arrive. Love did not come. Neither did hatred. Just sadness, then guilt for not feeling more. I showed Lily the photo because I didn't want secrets growing around her. She looked at the babies and asked, "Are they my brother and sister?" "They're your half-brother and half-sister." She touched the screen gently. "Do I have to meet them?" "Not until you're ready." That became my rule for everything. Not until we're ready. But no one else wanted to wait. Chloe died 6 weeks after the twins were born. Ashley called me on a Friday afternoon while I was in the grocery store. I remember standing near the cereal aisle, holding a box Lily liked, listening as Ashley said there had been complications from an infection. For a second, I didn't understand who she meant. Then she said, "Chloe's gone. Gone." People kept using soft words for brutal things. I leaned against the cart and closed my eyes. I had imagined Chloe living a long life somewhere away from me. I imagined she would raise the twins, and one day Lily could decide if she wanted a relationship with them. I imagined awkward birthdays, maybe tense messages, maybe years of distance slowly turning into something manageable. I never imagined this. "What happens to the babies?" I asked. Ashley started crying. That was when I knew. Chloe's parents had health problems and lived too far away. Chloe's aunt, Olivia, already had 3 kids and said she might take one baby temporarily, but not both. Susan and Paul were overwhelmed. Family services was involved. Then Ashley said, "We need to talk as a family." I knew what that meant. "No. Sarah, they're Lily's siblings." I hung up. I'm not proud of it, but I did. I stood in the aisle with the cereal box in my hands, feeling like the walls were moving closer. A woman passed with a toddler in her cart, and the toddler laughed at something on a phone. Such a normal sound. Such a normal life. I paid for groceries and sat in my car for 20 minutes. Michael was dead. Chloe was dead. 2 babies had no parents. My daughter was still asking why families break. And somehow, I knew people were about to look at me like the solution. 2 days later, Susan and Paul came over. They brought food. There is something unsettling about people showing up with dinner before asking you to sacrifice your life. Lily was at my mother's house, thank God. I had a feeling the conversation would not be one she needed to hear. Susan sat at my kitchen table and cried before she spoke. Paul looked older than he had at the funeral. Ashley came too, quiet and careful, sitting between them like a translator. Susan said, "The twins are innocent." I know. They're Michael's children. I know. They're Lily's blood. I know that too. Then she reached across the table and touched my hand. "They need family," she said. "They need you." I pulled my hand back. "You mean they need their grandparents?" Paul stared at the table. Susan wiped her face and said they were too old to raise infants full-time. Paul had back problems. Ashley said she and her husband were not in a position to take them. Olivia might take one, but separating them felt cruel. Chloe's parents were barely managing themselves. Everyone had a reason. Somehow, I was supposed to be the person whose reason didn't matter. Ashley said, "You have the most stable home." I looked at her. "And you're already a mother," she added. To Lily. Susan cried harder. Paul finally spoke. "No one is saying this is fair." "Then stop asking unfair things." The room went still. Ashley leaned forward, lowering her voice like she was trying to be kind. "You're the closest mother figure connected to their father." That sentence made something in me go cold. A mother figure. To the babies my husband had while I was folding his laundry. To the babies he paid for while I told Lily we could not afford dance for a few months. To the babies whose existence made my daughter ask if she wasn't enough for her own father. "No," I said. Susan whispered my name. I said it again. "No." Ashley's face changed. Not angry exactly. Disappointed, which somehow felt worse. "You're punishing children for adult mistakes," she said. "I'm protecting my child from living inside those mistakes." Susan said, "Lily deserves to know them. Lily deserves a mother who can get out of bed." That was the first time Paul looked directly at me. For a second, I thought maybe he understood. Then he said, "Michael would want his children together." The laugh that came out of me sounded nothing like me. "Michael wanted a lot of things," I said. That was the problem. They left with the casserole still on the counter. I threw it away. Maybe that makes me petty, but I couldn't open my fridge and stare at food from people who had just asked me to become collateral damage. The messages started that night. Susan sent pictures of Adam and Emma. Tiny hands. Sleeping faces. One message said, "They look so much like him." They did. Emma had Michael's mouth. Adam had the same crease between his eyebrows that Lily had when she was concentrating. Seeing it felt like being punished by genetics. I blocked Susan for a day, then unblocked her because Lily loved her grandparents, and I didn't want my pain to become a wall my daughter had to climb. But I stopped answering most messages. My mother, Nancy, tried to be careful. She never told me I had to take them. One night, while Lily was asleep, she sat with me at the kitchen table and said, "Just make sure you're choosing from peace, not only from pain." I wanted to snap at her. Instead, I said, "I don't have peace." She nodded. That was the first honest thing anyone had given me. My best friend, Grace, had the opposite reaction. I told her everything after closing at her bakery, surrounded by the smell of sugar and bread. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, absolutely not. I laughed because it was the first clear answer I had heard in weeks. You can feel sorry for those babies without becoming their mother, she said. Those are not the same thing. Everyone keeps saying they're innocent. They are, she said. And so are you. That broke me. Because that was the part everyone kept skipping. I was innocent too. Lily was innocent. Nobody showed up asking who was going to carry our damage. They only asked what more we could carry for everyone else. The worst conversation was with Lily. I told her Chloe had died using the simplest words I could. I said the twins' mom had gotten very sick and passed away. Lily cried even though she had never met Chloe, because kids understand sadness before they understand betrayal. Then she asked, are the babies alone now? I said adults were trying to figure out who could take care of them. She went quiet. Are they going to live with us? It felt like someone put a stone in my throat. No, sweetheart. Her face changed, and for one awful second, I thought she was disappointed in me. Because they remind you of Daddy? I closed my eyes. I could have lied. I didn't. A little, I said. And because taking care of babies is a very big thing. It would change our whole life, and I have to make sure you and I are okay. She looked down at her hands. Then she asked the question that still hurts. Does saying no make us bad? I pulled her into my lap even though she was getting too big for that. No, I said. Saying no to something too heavy does not make you bad. I was saying it to her. I was trying to believe it myself. Family services called the next week. Patricia introduced herself in a calm voice. She wasn't pushy, which almost made it harder. I had been ready to fight guilt, not professionalism. She said my name had been provided as a possible kinship placement because I was the legal wife of the twins' deceased father and the mother of their half-sibling. Legal wife. Deceased father. Half-sibling. Official words can make a wound sound like paperwork. I told her I was not available as a placement. She asked if I would consider temporary care. I said no. Then she asked if I would consider taking one child if a relative could take the other. That question made me sit down. No, I said. And please don't ask me that again. She apologized. I believed her. She said they were trying to keep the twins together, but options were limited. Then she asked if I would object to future contact between Lily and the twins if they were placed with relatives. That was the first question that didn't feel like a trap. When Lily is older, I said, if it's healthy and safe, I won't block contact. But I won't force it. And I won't be used as the bridge until everyone else gives up. Patricia said she understood. I don't know if she did, but she sounded like she wanted to. Then Ashley sent the message that almost made me lose my mind. She wrote about family duty, grief, and how Michael would have wanted me to protect all of his children. She said the twins might be separated. She said Susan was barely sleeping. She said Paul cried in the garage where no one could see him. She said I had the house, the experience, and the heart. The heart. Like my heart was a spare room everyone could move into. I typed, your brother should have protected his children by not creating them through betrayal. I deleted it. Then I typed, ask Michael why he didn't plan for this. I deleted that too. What I finally sent was, I am not able to raise them. Ashley replied almost immediately. Not able or not willing? I stared at those words for a long time. Then I wrote back, both. She didn't answer. The fallout was ugly. Susan left voicemails saying she never thought I could be this cold. In another, she said Michael had hurt me, but I was hurting him back through his children. I deleted that one before it finished. Paul sent one text. All we wanted was for them to stay with family. I replied, then their family needs to step up. He never responded. That was the truth nobody wanted to say out loud. They wanted the twins to stay with family, but only if family meant me. Not the grandparents who shared Michael's blood. Not the aunt who had opinions. Me. The woman he betrayed. The woman who would be praised for taking them in for about 2 weeks before everyone moved on and left me with bottles, daycare costs, therapy bills, and a daughter trying to understand why her father's affair had moved into her bedroom. I met with Elizabeth again because I needed protection. Michael had not updated everything before he died. Some benefits were messy. Some accounts still listed me because the divorce had not been finalized. Some things were meant for Lily. Elizabeth helped me separate what legally belonged to my daughter from everything else. You need to stop letting guilt make legal decisions, she said. I nodded. Your first responsibility is Lily. That sentence felt like permission to breathe. We made sure Lily's benefits were secured for her care and future. I did not touch anything meant for the twins. I did not fight them over what they were legally entitled to. But I also did not volunteer Lily's stability to fix Michael's chaos. Maybe some people will say I should have taken all 3 kids and created some beautiful blended healing story. But healing does not always look like opening your door. Sometimes it looks like locking it and sitting on the floor behind it until your hands stop shaking. A few weeks later, Susan and Paul agreed to temporary custody. I found out through my mother, who heard it from Ashley. Apparently, once family services made it clear the twins might be placed outside the family, Susan and Paul found more strength than they thought they had. I don't say that cruelly. I know they are grieving. I know they are older. I know 2 infants are a lot. But they asked me to carry what they had not yet agreed to carry themselves. They asked me first because I was convenient. Because I was already a mother. Because my pain was easier for them to ignore than their own limits. When Lily found out the twins would be with her grandparents, she asked if she had to visit. No, I said. Not until you want to. She asked if I hated the babies. That question scared me because I didn't want to plant bitterness in her. No, I said. I don't hate them. I'm sad for them. But I'm also sad for us. She nodded like that made sense. Maybe it did. One Sunday afternoon, Susan asked if Lily wanted to come over and just see them through the window. I said no. She accused me of keeping Lily from her siblings. I am giving Lily time to grieve her father before asking her to process his other children. They are not other children, Susan said. They are his children. Exactly. She hung up. After that, I set rules. No surprise photos. No guilt messages. No talking to Lily about the twins unless I was present. No asking me for childcare, money, or overnight help. If Susan and Paul wanted a relationship with Lily, they had to respect that her grief came before their guilt. Ashley called the rules harsh. Grace called them overdue. I called them survival. There was one moment when I almost changed my mind about helping more. Susan left a voicemail by accident. I think she meant to hang up, but the recording kept going. I could hear a baby crying in the background. Then another. Susan sounded exhausted, whispering, I know, I'm trying. For a second, I didn't hear the woman who guilt me. I heard an older woman drowning in the last pieces of her son's life. My thumb moved toward the call button. Then Lily walked into the room holding a drawing she made in counseling. It was a picture of our old family. Me, Michael, Lily. Beside it, she had drawn a second picture of just me and her. Between the 2 pictures was a big door. She said, Carol said I can draw boundaries. I looked at that little paper door and I put the phone down. That was my answer. Not because Susan deserved pain. Not because the twins deserved less. Because Lily was learning something I had learned too late. A boundary is not cruelty just because someone else needs what is on the other side. The life update is quiet. Not happy yet, but quieter. Lily and I still have bad nights. She still misses Michael. Sometimes she asks whether Daddy would still be alive if I hadn't made him move out. I tell her the truth every time. The accident was not her fault. It was not my fault. Adults can make mistakes, but we do not control the weather, the road, or someone else's choices. I go to therapy now. I used to think therapy was where people went when they had no one to talk to. I was wrong. Therapy is where I go so I don't pour my worst pain into my daughter. I still cry in strange places. A song in the pharmacy. A brand of cereal Michael liked. A father at Lily's school lifting his kid onto his shoulders. Grief is embarrassing like that. It does not care if the person hurt you. It just shows up and reminds you that love and anger can live in the same body. Susan and Paul are still caring for Adam and Emma while the longer placement gets worked out. I have heard Olivia may help more once things settle. I do not ask for details unless they affect Lily. I agreed in writing that I will not prevent Lily from knowing the twins when she is older and emotionally ready, as long as the contact is healthy. That is the compromise I can live with. I will not erase them. But I will not raise them. There is a difference. Sometimes I wonder what Michael would say if he could see this mess. I imagine him apologizing, but I don't trust imaginary apologies. They are too easy. The real Michael had months to tell the truth and chose silence until a hospital bill did it for him. So no, I do not make decisions based on what he would have wanted. He wanted 2 lives. I am the one left trying to build one honest life from the wreckage. People may call that selfish. Maybe it is. Maybe every act of survival looks selfish to someone who wanted your sacrifice. But when I tuck Lily in at night and she reaches for my hand, I know exactly why I signed those papers. Not adoption papers. Not guardianship papers. Papers protecting my daughter's future, our home, and the small peace we had left. My husband made choices that broke more people than he stayed alive to face. I cannot fix all of them. And for the first time since that envelope arrived, I am letting that be true.